Hello, my friends, it's Danny, and as per your request, today I am sharing 10 staple foods I always have in my freezer to help make healthy meals and snacks throughout the week. Now, this video is piggybacking off of my original video, which was 10 staple foods I always have in my fridge. So if you have not seen that video yet, I highly recommend going back and watching it. There are tons of tips and tricks and ideas in that video, so I will be sure to link it down in the description box below. Now, as for the freezer, I'm not really a huge frozen food person, as you're about to see, but I definitely have some staples that I keep on hand for nights when I am just in a pinch. We have nothing fresh or on hand, and I have no plan. This is basically what I'll turn to instead of ordering a pizza. So first, I'm gonna show you how I organize the freezer, and then we'll go through each item individually, and I'll show you different ways that I like to use them. So this is the freezer. Here on the top shelf, I call this my smoothie shelf. This is my frozen fruits, mostly berries and bananas. I also like to keep some frozen rice. Now on the middle shelf here, I have a variety of different things. So I have some frozen veggie burgers. I like to keep some type of leftover soup or chili on hand. This is lentil soup. I have boo-boo packs for bumps and bruises in the house. We always have those frozen and ready to go on hand. Then I have some frozen tortillas, some leftover peanut butter oatmeal bars. I've got English muffin, my frozen banana system, which we're gonna get to in just a minute, and then a flatbread. Then here on the bottom, on this side, I have frozen meat and chicken and pork. This is all from Butcher Box. And then over here, I have frozen vegetables, frozen dumplings, and then some frozen fish. So I've got scallops and salmon, again, from Butcher Box as well, which I'll tell you guys about in a minute. So that is how I organize the freezer. Now let's check out each ingredient and how I put them to use. Starting with frozen fruit. So frozen fruit is something I pretty much always have on hand. Like I said before, I call that my smoothie drawer because that's what we use it for mainly, but not completely. So what I have on hand is frozen mango, frozen pineapple, a variety of frozen berries. I have frozen avocado, which is actually a new find for me, but I think that would be really good in smoothies. Or I bet it would be great in my avocado brownies as well. So that's gonna be a fun thing to play with. And then I always keep frozen bananas on hand as well. And I have my own little system for freezing bananas. So here's what I like to do. I keep a small rimmed baking sheet lined with parchment paper in the freezer right on the middle shelf, right? So this tray just lives here. Then whenever I have bananas browning on my counter, which is rather often because we go through a lot of frozen bananas, I will slice them into coins, lay them out on the baking tray, and then stick this in the freezer so that the bananas freeze all the way through. Then once they're frozen, I transfer them into an airtight baggie. And the reason I do this is because if you just take the bananas from the counter, slice them up and put them in the baggie, they all end up sticking together and it becomes one big frozen block of banana. But if you lay them out first, then they individually freeze, then you can transfer it to the baggie and they're much easier to work with when you want to use them. I would say primarily we use them a ton in our smoothies. I've mentioned this in videos before, but nothing makes a creamier, more delicious smoothie than a frozen banana. And side note to all the people out there that don't like frozen bananas, the fruit number 2 that would create that result would be frozen mango. So if you don't like frozen banana and you want a creamy smoothie, then go to frozen mango. And then of course we love using the frozen bananas to make banana nice cream. If you have not tried banana nice cream yet, you really must. It is so insanely delicious. Basically, all you have to do is take some frozen bananas, put them in your blender with a little splash of almond milk or whatever type of milk you want. This is for a base recipe. You could put a little splash of vanilla extract if you had it on hand, blend it up and it turns into this rich, thick, creamy, soft serve ice cream. It is so good. I've actually shared some recipes with you in the past. The one that's been the most popular here on YouTube has been my Neapolitan banana ice cream. So good, and I will definitely link that down in the description box below. And for those of you who feel really excited about this idea, I also have an ebook on it with over 30 different flavors. So if that excites you, again, it will be linked below. Almost everything I referenced to in this video is going to be linked in the description box, so make sure you check that out as well. As for the frozen fruits, the frozen mango and the pineapple, my kids will often just eat as a snack right from the freezer. I myself do that as well because if you're a fast eater like myself, it really helps you to practice slowing down because it's very hard to eat ice cold food really fast. So That's a fun little trick. Another thing we like to do with the pineapple and the mango is to make like a fruit slushy. So you could do this with either one or combine them both. Get it into the blender with a little splash of water. You could do a little bit of honey or monk fruit. You just want to get enough liquid to get things moving. And then you're going to see it creates this really thick, creamy, almost like a sorbet, or my kids like to call it like an icy. And that is super delicious and really refreshing. Then with the frozen berries, we love adding this to either a Greek yogurt or some cottage cheese. Again, it's just a little play off of fresh berries, right? It's convenient when you don't have fresh berries on hand. Plus the cold texture actually is a really nice change of pace, and it's like a fun thing to eat. The frozen berries, I would say primarily though, we use in our smoothies. And I have lots of smoothies, lots of protein shakes that I've shared in the past. They will be linked below. But just a little tip for those of you who like to make smoothies or protein shakes, I highly recommend always using frozen fruit. One, it's obviously a little bit cheaper, it's more convenient, but most importantly, it makes a more delicious shake because it makes it really, really creamy and it doesn't get watered down. Now, another ingredient that I always have in my freezer, and if you follow me on Instagram, you know this, is frozen rice. I buy the frozen rice at Trader Joe's. I usually buy the jasmine, the brown, and the rice medley, and it's just a really convenient ingredient to keep on hand. You can use it for any recipe that calls for rice, so say my stuffed peppers or chicken burrito bowls, but you can also make really simple meals using the rice. So for instance, one of my top 3 5-minute go-to meals is the frozen rice with some black beans. And here's what I do. I heat up the rice, I get it nice and warm, I drain out my black beans, mix that into the rice along with a big handful of chopped baby spinach. Then I add a little bit of coconut oil, salt, pepper, and garlic powder. Mix that all together and you will have the most delicious, very nutritious 5-minute meal. And both of my kids love this one. As a matter of fact, it very often ends up in lunch boxes. And if I'm making it at home, like say we have activities and we just need something really quick on the in-between, I might serve it with some avocado and chips on the side for the kids, or you could serve it with veggies. I mean, it's super versatile, but the name of the game here is really fast, really delicious, and still nutritious. One thing I love to do with this rice and bean combo is I'll chop up a couple hard-boiled eggs and mix them in there for a really quick, easy lunch with a big boost of protein. Another thing I love doing with the frozen rice, and the kids love this one too, is we make these little tacos. So what I do is I heat the rice up and then I just add a little bit of coconut oil and gomasio, which is basically sesame seeds with sea salt. You can also get it with garlic, you can get it with seaweed mixed in, lots of different options. It's got great flavor and a great texture. So I add that to the rice, mix it all together, and then I buy these little packages of roasted seaweed from Trader Joe's. We'll put the seaweed out. I'll cut up some cucumbers and some avocado on the side, and then we just build these little tacos. So you put your rice right on the center of the seaweed, layer on your cucumbers, layer on your avocado, and a little extra sprinkle of gomasio over the top, and boom. You've got this delightful little bite to pop in your mouth. This also works for lunch boxes if you pack all the pieces separately. So it's a fun one and it's absolutely delicious. The next thing you will always find in my freezer is some type of frozen tortilla and or some type of frozen bread or English muffin in this case. So here I have organic, non-GMO corn tortillas that we will pull out in a pinch to turn just about anything into a taco. So I will take any type of leftover protein, chop it up with a little bit of cheese, and my kids will eat that happily any night of the week. They are also great for making breakfast tacos. So I might scramble some eggs with some spinach or whatever vegetable I have on hand. Spoon that into the tortillas, put a little cheese over the top, makes a delightful little breakfast, and it also works for lunch or dinner as well. Another thing we like to do with these tortillas is kind of make like a corn tortilla quesadilla. So I might add a little bit of shredded chicken, a little bit of black bean, a little bit of broccoli, again, whatever I had on hand, and turn it into a little quick quesadilla. Very easy, very delicious. As for the English muffins, I'm a huge fan of Food for Life. These are sprouted English muffins. They also make bread. If you watched my in the fridge video, that's the bread I always keep in the refrigerator. I keep the English muffins in the freezer simply because we don't eat them as often, so they last longer in the freezer. But we'll use this for a variety of different little meals. One, of course, being simply toasted up with a little bit of pastured butter, or you could do a spread of cream cheese, a sprinkle of spinach, and some sliced eggs over the top. That is lovely. Also delicious with some nut butter and some fresh berries over the top. I mean, really any way you enjoy eating your toast, you can do that with the English muffin. And one of the mini meals that I've recently rediscovered and been making for the kids is little mini pizzas. They are so great on these sprouted English muffins because these are nice and hearty, so they hold you over, they're sustainable. I'll put a little bit of tomato paste or some type of tomato sauce over the top. Sprinkle some mozzarella cheese. I'll do a little bit of oregano and a little bit of garlic powder over the top. That really gives it that pizza palla type of flavor. And then you can either throw it into a toaster oven or your broiler. It's so simple and so delicious. Now, another food I always keep in my freezer is frozen veggie burgers. I'm a big fan of the Dr. Praeger's frozen veggie burgers because they're actually packed with vegetables, as you can see, and I really like that. It is a great option when you need something quick and easy, but you also want to make a nutritious choice. So what I like to do is I'll usually heat it in the microwave for like 20 seconds or so just to get that frozen edge off of it. Then I heat a small pan with a little bit of olive oil or coconut oil, get the veggie burger in there. I like to flatten it out a bit to create a little more surface area. And then once it gets a nice brown little crispiness on the outside, I flip it over and do the same to the other side. Then I might build a burger with it. So I will take one of those sprouted English muffins. I'll put a spread of mayo over the bottom of it. I'm really loving this chili lime mayo from Primal Kitchen. Just a great flavor and a really good quality mayonnaise. Then I layer on some spinach leaves, put the burger on top, maybe slice a little avocado, and then pop the top on. Serve it with a handful of extra veggies on the side, and you, my friend, are winning. So simple, so delicious. You could also make this if you wanted to skip the avocado and do some melted cheese. Or sometimes if I'm really in a pinch or I just feel kind of lazy, I'll just cook up like 2 veggie burgers and serve that with some veggies and hummus on the side. So it's really an easy way to enjoy a delicious meal that's also pretty darn good for you. Now, another thing I try to be mindful of is whenever I'm making chili or soup, I'll try to make some extra so I can put a little bit in the freezer. So right now I have these little individual containers of lentil soup that I froze after making a big batch of it over the weekend a few weeks back. It's a great way to have something that's homemade on hand on a night when you're just not going to be making a meal. Now, you could of course freeze these in bigger containers, but for us, I like the single serving because it usually ends up working out that way, right? It's like somebody needs to eat something, and so we will defrost enough for one person. This is my lentil soup, but this would also work really well with some veggie chili, with some turkey chili, with my minestrone soup. I mean, really, you could do this with a whole bunch of recipes, and I'll link to some ideas down in the description box below. But really the big takeaway here is if you're gonna be at the stove cooking something anyway, especially a big pot of something, why not make a little bit more and get your own back for a night when you just don't have the time? Moving right along, another ingredient that I like to keep in the freezer is either some type of sweet treat or perhaps a make-ahead breakfast option. So right now I have my no-bake peanut butter oatmeal bars, which I showed you all last week. We had a bunch of those left over, so I went ahead and froze them. I just stick a little parchment paper in there so they don't stick together. And then this is a great grab-and-go option, whether it's somebody wanting something sweet after school or if you just needed like breakfast in a pinch, they're here and they're ready to go. And you can defrost them, but you can also eat them frozen. This also works really well with any of the energy balls that I've shared with you guys in the past. Sometimes if we wanted to do a sweet treat, I might freeze like my avocado brownies or my favorite chocolate chip cookies. Or if you really wanted like a dedicated breakfast option, then you might want to try something like my DIY breakfast sandwiches. All of those would be really good ideas to have on hand. Not all at the same time, but picking 1 or 2 and keeping them in the freezer. Okay, moving right along, and this one may be familiar to those of you who've watched my Trader Joe's hauls in the past, and that is the Trader Joe's frozen mushroom flatbread. This is not the world's cleanest frozen food, but it is so delicious, and sometimes you just need something super yummy, and we all love this one. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll heat it up, serve it to the kids in a pinch. I'll always try to put a veggie or a small salad on the side, which really is not extra work for us because, as you know, I'm a big fan of keeping the crudité on hand. So if you're prepping your vegetables at the beginning of the week and you have them on hand ready to go, it's a really easy way to balance out some of these quicker less nutrient dense options, right? You just have the pizza, grab a handful of veggies, and you're ready to roll. I also love using these like if we're having friends over or if we're socializing as like a quick little easy appetizer. I'll just make it, chop it up, and put it out for everybody to grab a bite of. It really is just that good. Now down on my bottom shelf, as you saw, I have a bunch of frozen meat, usually a combination of organic chicken, grass-fed beef, and heritage pork. Now about 85% of the meat that we get these days comes from a company called ButcherBox. They source out good, high quality meats and then they deliver them right to your door. So I get that delivery on a monthly basis and I go on the website, I pick what I want in the box, I can mix and match, and then that comes right to the doorstep. It just makes getting my hands on good quality meats very easy and very convenient. And I also like that it pushes me out of my comfort zone. Oftentimes I will try things that I wouldn't normally buy at the grocery store. Now, most of the time, the recipes that I'm making with these meats are very simple recipes and often treated as Head Start ingredients. So I will make my salsa chicken, I'll do barbecue chicken. I like to do the pulled pork in the slow cooker, which I shared with you all a few weeks back. So all of those recipes I will link down below. But if I had ground meat in there, I might make meatballs or meatloaf. Sometimes I'll do stuffed zucchini or stuffed peppers, right? Really simple, really delicious meals that I can also make on the weekend and then repurpose throughout the week. That seems to be the name of the game right now with an 8 and a 10-year-old. Now I also have some wild salmon and some scallops. Those are from ButcherBox as well. I like getting the scallops because they defrost very quickly and they cook very quickly. So to me, they become a very viable weeknight meal, but they're also like special and delicious enough if you wanted to make it like a little bit of a more kicked up weekend meal. I don't think I've ever actually shared a scallop recipe with you all in the past. If it's something you want to see, again, let me know down in the description box below. As for the salmon, I've definitely shared recipes for that. I have that video for easy baked salmon. And in that video, I show you how to make lemon butter salmon, honey mustard salmon, and maple salmon. And all of those are easy enough for a weeknight meal. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Okay, my friends, we are coming into the home stretch here. Another ingredient I love keeping on hand, as you can see, a lot of my frozen foods come from Trader Joe's, are these frozen vegetable dumplings. These, if you've never tried them, I have to tell you, they're delicious and they're so easy to make. Here's what I will do. I'll get a small saute pan, put a little bit of oil on the bottom, let that heat up, get the dumplings in the pan, give them a minute or two, then I splash in some water, pop a lid on the top. Be careful if it's too hot because it'll really sizzle up, so don't let it get too hot. Let that go for like 3-4 minutes. Really what's happening right now is we're steaming the dumplings and we want them to heat all the way through. Then you can take the lid off. Once that water has absorbed, you can eat the dumplings just like this, but I usually like to leave them in the pan for an extra couple minutes so that they create this nice little crusty edge, kind of like a pan-fried dumpling. And then I will serve those with my favorite combination of Greek yogurt and sriracha for a really easy weeknight dinner. If I wanted to get fancy, I might add a little bit of frozen edamame on the side. Easy, nutritious, delicious. And the very last ingredient that you will find in my freezer are frozen peas and frozen edamame. Now, just as a side note, I don't keep a ton of frozen vegetables on hand, and that's because I cook so often and my work is in the kitchen cooking, and I always have fresh prepped vegetables in the refrigerator, but I do think they are a fantastic option. They are picked in season, flash frozen. Oftentimes they're much more inexpensive than if you're buying fresh vegetables, and they last a lot longer, so you don't have to worry about them going bad. So my dear friend, frozen vegetables are nothing to sneeze at. As for the frozen peas, my kids love just snacking on these, and that's usually why I keep them on hand. They like eating them frozen right from the bowl, especially during the hotter months. Peas are actually very sweet. They do have a pretty good sugar content, natural sugar, so the kids really enjoy the texture, and I think it's just something fun for them to snack on. So that's really why I keep the frozen peas on hand. And the frozen edamame, like I showed you earlier, we might serve those up with the dumplings. I might toss them on top of a salad, or they may end up in a lunchbox. And they're really easy to make. You would just bring some water to a boil in a small pot, add your edamame, let them go for a few minutes, drain them out, and then top them with a little bit of salt. Super delicious and a great plant-based source of protein. So that, my friends, is what I have for you. Those are 10 staples you will always find in my freezer. They're very easy, they're very delicious, but most importantly, it's all so very, very doable, and that is the name of the game. So now, of course, I'm very curious to know, what are some of your favorite staples to keep on hand? Please come down to the comments below and let me know. I also wanted to note that I know many of you are waiting for a pantry style video like this. I do intend to make that as well, so stay tuned. And I was also curious if you would want to see perhaps a snack drawer and or top spices to have on hand. So if those types of videos are of interest to you, again, come on down to the comments below and let me know. That's how I get to communicate with you and know what exactly it is that you are wanting. If you have not already, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share this video with anybody else you know who wants to make healthy eating easy. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Dani Spies, and I will see you back here next time with some more clean and deliciousness. Cheers! So that is the basic organization system. So now let's take, boop. So that's my basic organization, bloop. So that is my basic organization system. That's how I keep the freezer when I'm shooting. Is my Napoleon, how do you say that? Neapolitan. Is my Neapolitan, how do you say it? Neapolitan.